I thought a change of location would be appropriate for the next couple of lessons. Since we're talking about nature, I felt like it'd probably be a good idea to get out in nature. It's very sunny out today, so I apologize in advance for the extra brightness, but it's actually good for you anyway to see light and be in light. And we will talk about that in one of the lessons. But I wanted to just give a little introduction to nature because I feel like it's one of those resources that can get lost very easily. We tend to be indoor creatures in our society and our culture. Most of our jobs are done inside. Most of the time that we spend when we're off, resting and relaxing, can be spent inside. Many times we can get caught up in binging shows or, playing games on our computer or, just whatever it is, and just be inside way too much for our own good. And so I wanted to talk about nature specifically as a resource because it is, and we were made from the same substances of nature. If you believe, as I do, that God created us from the dust of the ground and breathed into our nostrils the breath of life, and that's how we became living souls, then you can see the pattern there. He took something from the earth and created us. We are made from earth, and when we die, our bodies die here on earth, they go back to dust. They turn back into a piece of nature. And we are just made from the same, molecules and atoms that plants and animals are made from. Even if you don't believe, as I do, that that's how we came into being. And I hope that you do, because I feel like that's the only way we can have purpose, is if we're not accidents. If we're accidents, it's just kind of what happens to us in life is what we have to deal with. But I don't believe that. I believe God created us and gave us agency and gave us responsibility and gave us purpose and mission here on earth. And that is a reason for getting up every day and living this life that we live. And so, but if you do believe in evolution and believe that, we evolved from animals, then even more you would believe that nature is important and that we came from nature. And so either way, whatever you believe about your origin, you are connected to nature, and you have a great resource in being outside. Back in the beginning of time, when you go all the way back to when humans were first created, they did not live in houses for the most part. They did not build cities at first. They were tent dwellers. They were wanderers. So they were in nature all of the time, and they would wander from place to place and set their tents up. And, because they had to go where the resources were. So they were constantly moving and trying to find those things for their survival. And then later on, when they did build cities, there was so much that had to be done outside. I mean, every day you had to go get your water. You had to have a water source and go outside to get that. You had to grow your own food. You had to, there was just so much time spent outside. And we don't have that as much in the society that we live in. Our society is built more on systems and inside things and, technology and all of that kind of thing. And don't get me wrong, those are all good things. We need shelter as humans. Like the weather in itself is something that sometimes we have to protect ourselves from. But we've gone from one extreme, to another. And I think that it has had a worse impact on our health than we even recognize. Many people talk about exercise being what we've lost from technology, because it makes, it does so much for us that we don't have to do anymore. You don't even have to change your TV to get up and change the channel. You have a remote to do that. In many houses nowadays, you can just say the word and all, lights turn off and coffee gets made, and, all of those things. We don't have to do those take those actions with our body anymore. But I think even more of what's been lost is just the getting outside. being in nature. And so when we talk about this, I know many people live in city areas, in large metropolises or outside in the suburbs where, these neighborhoods are very close together. There's very little nature left in some of these places. And because of that, the air quality is lower. The ability to even go outside and enjoy the scenery, enjoy what's out, is more difficult, more challenging. And so if you do live in a city area, nature becomes a scarce resource, and you may have to do more intentional things to find it. You may have to go further outside of the city to find those places where you can get the fresh air and the, you know, more expansive sky, and the trees and the bushes. I'm blessed enough to where right now in the place that we live, we have about 7 acres of land. So it feels very much like we're out in nature, like out way outside the city. But 10 minutes down the street, I can drive and, go to Walmart and go shopping. And I consider that the best of both worlds, but each person has a unique story and a unique mission and purpose, and we live in unique places. And I think the important thing to remember and to know is nature is important. It's important to your health. It's important to all aspects of your health, your mental health, your emotional health, your physical health, and your spiritual health. Nature impacts all of those things. And we're going to talk about that a little bit in these lessons and how you can use it as a resource in many ways. So let's talk about a little bit about grounding or earthing. I know I taught you an exercise when we were talking about rest. I think as a resource is where I taught the ground and release, where you lay on the floor or you sit in a chair and you do the focusing on the boundary, where the boundary of the body meets the boundary of the surface. This is different, and so I want to call it earthing. You can look it up as earthing, and you will find many scientific studies and many health professionals talking about it. But it's simply going outside and connecting your actual body, skin to earth. So, walking on grass, or getting your feet in the dirt, getting your hands in the dirt. Gardening would be a good source of earthing if you do some gardening. But just connecting ourselves physically with the surface of nature is a very powerful resource for our bodies. It can improve our sleep. It can improve our breathing, our just our circulatory system. Something about, and I don't want to get into energies or weird thing, but science tells us that there are energy currents all throughout our world. There are energy currents throughout our bodies. There are energy currents throughout all of living things. And it's kind of the science that technology is based on, is those energies, and there's electrons and those electrical currents. And we have a similar electricity as the earth, as the ground. And so because we're made from dust, and I believe that God made us from the dust of the ground. And so when we connect ourselves to that, we can gain some energy from that. We can gain some good things from that. Even the microbes and the things that are in the soil. We are so connected to nature that we breathe in oxygen and plants breathe out oxygen. We breathe out carbon dioxide and plants breathe out carbon dioxide. I mean, it's so cool the way that this works. If you start to intricately study nature, you will see signs of humanity in nature. There's different things that you will find. I saw something recently that showed the branching of roots of a tree, and then it showed how the branching of nerves and that kind of thing in our body, and how similar it looks to what's in nature. We are so connected to that. And so it just makes sense that being outside would be a healthy activity for us. And even if we're not exercising outside, which I think just packs a double super punch, if you're getting to exercise outside nowadays, people are going to gyms more. Anytime we can switch that up, we make ourselves healthier. That contributes to our health. It's a resource. And so I just want to encourage you to be thinking of ways that maybe you can do that. If you can today, I would just love for you to find a few moments that you could get out in nature, that you could find a place. If you live in a city, there's probably places around you somewhere where somebody has built just a little nature, whether it's a park or, it's just a little space, green space, they call it, I think nowadays, where you could go and you can just sit in nature and just be for a few minutes and just look around you and just absorb what is created around you, what is beautiful around you, how it just perfectly syncs and perfectly interacts. We're going to talk about some of that when we get into the lessons on the seasons, the rhythms, and the structure and the systems that God has put into place on this earth and how they benefit us in so many different ways. But just spend a few moments outside today, out in nature. And if there's absolutely no way that you can do that, I know that there are limitations on all of our lives sometimes, and we might feel trapped. And that's why I want you to know all of your resources that you have, because you're never trapped. You're never without resources. You always have something that you can use, whether it's just, what we talked about before with gratitude. There's always a resource available to you. If you cannot get out into nature, I thoroughly recommend that you do it in your imagination, that you either find a book that speaks very much to nature and helps you to imagine nature, or you, I'm sorry, there's a plane flying overhead and it's so distracting me. It's already hard for me to focus in on this doing videos, but when there's some distracting form of noise, it's even worse. Anyway, imagine a place that you have been in nature, that you've been to, that you just felt healthy and vibrant and alive and free. And maybe even if you have health problems and you have all your life, maybe you didn't even feel that healthy, but it just did something in your soul. It just brought you joy. Just close your eyes and picture yourself in that place and start to imagine, like, how did the flowers smell? How picture listening to the birds. How did they sound? What did you feel while you were there? Was there a breeze? Was it cold? Was it hot? Was there something spectacularly beautiful that you saw in that place? And if you'll just give yourself a few minutes in that place, and then I want you to notice, after you've been out in nature, or after you've imagined nature, or after you've been immersed in a book about nature, I want you to notice how your body has shifted. Are there any shifts from the stress level you felt before and the stress level you felt after? Are there any shifts to your mood? Do you feel any lighter? One of the things that is my favorite to do is connect with God in nature. I feel like I am most connected to Him when I'm outside. I know that's not true, because I believe that the Holy Spirit lives inside of me, and I believe that He is everywhere and He is with me, whether I'm inside or outside. But when I go outside, it opens up my mind and my heart to how big He is and how the nature of Him. I find it so fascinating, some of the creatures that we find. I posted a video today on my social that was this like fish that someone had pulled out of the ocean, and it looks like a mango, and then it opens up its mouth and it looks like it has veneers, and it's like I pulled out a mango with veneers out of the ocean, and it's just this blob with teeth. and it just kind of smiles and spits some water out, and the guy just puts it back in the water. And it was a real actual live animal. And if you go look it up, you can learn more things about it. But there are so many creatures. If you watch any nature television, it's just fascinating. But it shows us the character of a God who loves variety and who loves to create and who loves to make things interesting and intriguing, but also one who has a sense of humor. Some of these animals, the way that they act, I have chickens, the way that the chickens run around in the coop just brings me so much joy. I laugh at them all the time. They're just so amazing. Every creature that he made, every flower, some of these flowers that we see that actually look like animals, there's just fascinating aspects to nature, and we will miss it if we do not intentionally take the time to observe those things. And so I just wanted to encourage you to work that resource into your life. We're going to have a few lessons about how exactly to do that.